Hello everyone, Ace here, and today let's talk about the censorship of Ready or Not, which is apparently being done to help facilitate the console release of the game this mid-July. And to be clear, at least some of the censorship is going to be present on the PC version as well, in order to prevent issues with cross-compatibility. The reception of this decision has been overwhelmingly negative, as you can see with regards to the recent Steam reviews, as people are understandably very upset with the idea of the game that they bought and paid for getting censored, especially when the game is supposed to be a gritty, realistic SWAT team simulator, which for those who don't know, SWAT team simulators have a reputation for being among the darkest and bleakest of games in terms of the content that they can have within them. Mass child graves aren't exactly new to this particular subgenre, so the act of trying to censor a game from that particular subgenre is all the more egregious. You couldn't have picked a worse subgenre to place your game in and then try to censor. And adding insult to injury is of course the fact that there is a fairly easy fix to this whole mess. Just add a button that says enable cross-compatibility on the PC version. When you enable this button, you get the changes that are needed for the console version, and when you don't, you get the actual proper PC experience. A lot of games already have an enable cross-compatibility button, so just do it here too, and that would actually fix the problem. But no, instead the developers have put out a second statement, taking up the position of, the changes are only minor, they're not that big of a deal, you can live without them, and you'd really have to look hard to notice these changes. This, however, completely misses the core point, that being that you're making these changes in the first place, that you're censoring the game in the first place. The sheer fact that you're doing it is the problem, and no amount of saying, it's a minor change is going to make that go away. I've seen people trying to cowardly defend the changes made to the Stalker Definitive Edition by saying that the changes in that game were minor as well, and therefore the censorship wasn't really a big deal, and that you just need to shut up and accept that. Clearly, we need an analogy to get through to these morons that think censorship is acceptable so long as it's done in minuscule minor amounts. Imagine for a moment a psychopath coming up and cutting off one of your toes. And then when you start to complain, that psychopath says, you didn't really need that toe. It's only a minor change, bro. You're overreacting. And nobody from the outside world is going to notice in your everyday activities. That's what it sounds like whenever one of these people decide to defend censorship by claiming that the changes are only minor and therefore not a big deal. Oh, and to add further insult to injury, I should mention that thanks to the modding scene for Ready or Not, it is readily apparent that you can in fact change in-game models and have it not completely bork the multiplayer experience if someone else doesn't have those model changing mods, just to demonstrate how hyperbolic the devs are being with regards to how necessary these changes are in the first place. Like I said though, there is an easy way out, even if we're to play devil's advocate and assume that this is all the case and that the devs are being completely honest with us, and that is just to have an enable cross-compatibility button. That way people that want the actual proper uncensored experience can, just by disabling cross-compatibility. Oh sure, you might have half a dozen assets now that you have to look after. The assets that you already made and were in the original uncensored version of the game. Assets that are level specific, mind you, meaning that if there's a problem, you're going to be able to figure out which exact asset it is, just by which level is having the issue. But there's one exception, the change to the dismemberment system. Okay, well if you have the exact same issue in more than one level, then that also makes it much easier to pare down which exact thing is causing that issue, doesn't it? And that is of course all before considering the fact that most gamers will absolutely prefer a slightly buggier experience over a more censored one, as well as would prefer a non-cross-compatible game if it came down to it, provided that the non-cross-compatible game wasn't censored, as opposed to a game that is cross-compatible and is censored as a direct result. These devs still have 12 more days to fix this issue, and with the sheer amount of negative feedback that they've been receiving, I do believe there is a shot at persuading these devs upon the wisdom of not censoring this game, which is part of the reason why I've explained ways that the devs can get themselves out of this mess. And I do hope that they end up listening to reason and giving fans what they want, instead of something that they absolutely despise.